We're also frightened by time, the way it moves on and the way things disappear. That's why we're photographers.
We're preservationists by nature. We take pictures to stop time, to commit moments to eternity.
Hey, welcome to the Street Shots Photography Podcast. This is Antonio.
And this is Ward.
And this is episode 179 for the middle of March. We're actually recording on Pi Day. I don't know if you
Pi Day, that's right. 3.14.
3.14. Yeah.
9259.
Did you have a pie today? You don't follow this.
No, I had Vietnamese food.
Oh.
So there was no pie to be had.
No. Elizabeth would have, if she was around, she would have made sure we had some sort of pies. We probably would have had a pie for dinner, like a chicken pot pie, and then we would have certainly had some sort of apple pie or something.
Oh, nice.
For sure. Yeah, so I didn't get any pies today. I wasn't in the mood. It was, but one time she made an apple pie, a bourbon bacon apple pie. If you can just imagine this thing, and she used really thick, like slab bacon, and literally it was an apple pie with the crust of bacon.
Cool.
It smelled, yeah, except that the thing is, we realized that we needed to cook the bacon ahead of time. We didn't.
That's
So the apples were soaked in bacon fat, and that wasn't quite so pleasant. It looked beautiful, but it wasn't so pleasant. So
she didn't give you like a little task, like, can you tell from the slice of pie I've just served you what the circumference of the pie is?
No, but I did have to measure how much bacon fat there was.
Okay,
and it made a good photograph too. It looked beautiful, with this. Anyway, that was, we never got a chance to remake that. I'll have to try
food photography, for
food
advertising.
Yeah. So yeah, we've missed you on the show a couple times.
I know, I'm back. My voice is almost back. I was not like, I was not in any kind of horrible, barely there sort of state. It was just, fighting quite an interesting cold, and my voice was completely unusable. So now it's coming back.
You sound
pretty good.
Better. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I sound the same nasally, annoying self in my own head. So that's good.
Don't we all sound annoying to ourselves?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it was. I was kind of bummed that you weren't around. But I did have a good chat with Bart on the last episode.
That was great.
And for those of you who may not have heard it, we actually started on his show talking about more AI because it was just the topic was topical, and I also. He had done an episode about AI, and after I heard it, I called him up, or I left him a message on Twitter, and I said, I want to volunteer to be on your show. And so that he said, definitely. And then we came up with the idea, since you weren't around, that we would do the two-parter. Yeah. So I really enjoyed it. I could talk to him for hours.
I think I could too, yeah.
Yeah. I get a chance to go out and visit. I'd love to go to Ireland. But anyway, that was fun. But yeah, we missed you. I think that would be a good conversation. But I think the three of us need to get together and figure out something to talk about, because he's a great person to talk to about photography. So, but yeah, I missed you. And I can't remember what I did first. What was the episode prior to that?
Did you do a one-off?
I did, but I can't remember what I talked about. Oh yeah, the familiar places, the stuff I was doing.
Oh yeah.
All the old familiar places. But
right.
So yeah, I missed you. Missed talking.
Well, I'm back.
You are back, baby. You
might regret it.
The evening is young.
The evening is still young. Exactly.
The recording is just starting. Yeah. So a few things a couple things to talk about before we get into our main topic. First of all, we had one of our listeners reach out to us, Mr. Jeffrey Saldinger. I'm butchering his name. What would you?
I would go with Saldinger.
Yeah,
see, we're trying. We're trying, Jeffrey.
Sorry,
we're
since
trying.
I haven't spoken to you. He reached out to us via email and asked if we wanted a copy of his book. And since I am now a collector of books, I said absolutely. and he sent us both a copy of his book, which is entitled Unassuming Places in New York City's Manhattan and Astoria. And I first of all, Jeffrey, if you're listening, I'm sure you are, since you're a listener. Again, I want to thank you for this beautiful book that you sent both of us.
I was really bowled over with it. I kind of love it, actually.
Yeah, I do. I will put a link to the book PDF and his website on the show notes so that anybody who's interested can see it. But I'd actually would like to talk about the book on an episode, or like maybe we can actually talk him into being on the show and talking about this book and his processes. But yeah, the quick, I want to say quick review, because I don't want to necessarily give it a quick review. It's beautiful photography. What I told him in my email to thank him is that there are bits and pieces of New York in his book that I recognize from just being a New Yorker, and the way he captured his little details of New York and I believe what he said, Astoria, so Manhattan and Queens. And as I went through it a few times, I just realized that like I recognize this place, and it was really an interesting viewpoint to see the city through his eyes in this book. I'm really glad he was able to send you a copy too.
Yeah, and too, I share. I mean, not being a native New Yorker, I got the energy of New York now after having been there, and I shared that with him too. That there are bits of the energy, and it's to me there are moments of when you're just sitting somewhere in a cab or on the train, or just standing in the street and wherever, and just letting yourself stare and seeing details that are just happen to be in front of you. Sometimes static, sometimes fleeting. It's pretty amazing. He caught those kind of moments. Really, really enjoyed it. And in terms of it, the book is like an art object of itself too. It's like I told him, it's the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So
yeah, I agree. It also here we're starting to sound like a review.
Yeah,
I don't want to just we have to give it enough of time, but I do want to spend more time with it. It jives with like what I've been doing lately. I think when I talked about it a couple of episodes ago on my own, the familiar places, where I'm like walking around my neighborhood and trying to capture details and things that I might not have been able to see, or other people might not be able to see, and just walk around and really try to look at what's familiar in a different way. And then this book came in around, of course, around the time when I'm doing this. And so I'm also looking at his imagery and able to start to maybe even see the world a little bit through his eyes, like how he sees. And I find it's very hard for me to do. It's not how I see. No. But when I do catch a glimpse of something like, a reflection in a like a pool of water in the street, and use that reflection to capture something, it made me think about him. But it's for me a way to see the city in a different way. And I love that it came in this time when I'm actually this is the kind of stuff I'm doing. I'm doing my version of it. This sort of detailed work. So, but I really wanted to thank him publicly, from us in this forum to the world. And please, I mean, Jeffrey, if you make your book available for sale, I think it would be, I think it would fly off the shelf.
Yeah.
It's a really well.
Yeah, I told him it's on the top of my pile, and it will be for a long time. So
yeah,
it's just buy my easy chair in the living room. So when my wife's watching something boring on TV, I'm like, I'm going to Astoria.
It is a book that I can pick up often and find a lot more stuff to look at, even in the pictures that I've seen before. So anyway, Jeffrey, thank you so much. And, you might have set a precedent, but, if there's anybody in our audience who wants to share their publication with us, I'm happy to have a copy. Just to, be a little selfish here, but I blame you, Ward, for this book thing that I'm on.
Well, we're not going to be Ted Forbes where there's, mail
opening up. No,
Wednesdays.
I don't. Although, actually,
videos of us opening boxes, I don't see that.
No, but you know, it's funny. I watched one of his videos, and a book that he spent some time on. He opened it up, and what was the name of it? From
Brooklyn to Berlin.
Yeah, something like that. And like while he was talking about it, I was enthralled by the pictures, and I immediately ordered it before he even finished talking about it. Yeah. And it was a very very good book. Basically this gentleman's journey. I think he's working for a government agency, I don't know, the EPA or something like that. But his time going to Eastern Europe during the Cold War, or and through the fall of the Berlin Wall fall, and his friends that he made there, and the photography that he shot while he was going on these trips, and the people that he was with, and the photography is just great too. So, yeah, I don't think we'll be in, a Ted Forbes, but I'm happy to have people want me to look at their books or have us talk about them or something like that. Actually, and again, one of the things I want to do, and we've talked about this, and I'm sure about the logistics, but to sort of copy or do our version of like what Alex Soth does, is I would love to like talk to you about a book, live. Like maybe even, I don't know if we would record a show because it's hard to do. We're doing audio, So how to do this, but to do that on YouTube, to be able to see the book, we don't have to see us, right? Nobody needs to see our pusses. No. But to go through the book together somehow, for us to both see the book and then talk about it and make that a visual journey. So I don't know if you're still into that, but I'd like to.
I am. I was just concerned about the logistics, but it seems like you got to figure it out.
That's what I got to figure out, is how do we do this so that you can we can record this and you can see the imagery, or if we both have the book, then that's fine, because then we can both talk about it. But it seems like based on what I've been watching on YouTube these days, people are able to show pictures of it because you're talking about it. So you're doing a fair use of it. And I'm not trying to sell anything or anything like that, but it's just, I don't want to get in trouble. Right. But I've noticed that people are showing books. And so it seems like we probably be able to do that in a way, as long as we're talking about it. So anyway, I hope there's interest in that, and we can figure something out and do that. So
sure.
Anyway, again, Jeffrey, from the both of us, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. So anyway, part 2 of what I wanted to talk about. That was the nice part.
So Antonio, what's your beef?
Where's the beef? Yeah. Well, I want to try to not make this a rant. I'm trying to be nicer these days and not complain. But let's just get it out. Posting, and I'm not sure if the person who posted this, or who I'm going to be talking about, which I won't mention names, is listening to this show. I don't think so, but in case, it brought up some interesting thoughts in my mind. Anyway, I post these pictures, like I said, from the neighborhood. I walk around, and I posted a bunch of, I usually post like 10 or 15 pictures, and it's just random stuff. There's no theme to the pictures other than like I'm trying to find little details. And
in your neighborhood, though, right? It's specific.
Not just my neighborhood, in surrounding neighborhoods. Because when I do a walk, I walk a few miles, and so I end up walking into 2 or 3 different neighborhoods. We have Kensington, Ditmas Park, Flatbush, and Windsor Terrace are kind of the areas that I walk around in. So when I post the pictures, I say pictures from the hoods, from the different hoods, and I don't really mention where they are because I don't remember where I shot them. So I put about 10, 12 pictures at a time. So I just put up some pictures this morning or last night, maybe it was this morning. And, getting a lot of people saying, oh, it's great to see the neighborhood through your eyes, just like, I was saying before. And then, of course, I get the inevitable, it doesn't happen a lot, but the inevitable, not even saying, this is where I'll be a little critical, not even saying, hey, great pictures, right? ... Yeah. This was, what camera and lenses do you use? And, of course, the hairs, whatever hair I've got left, on the back of my neck, stand up a little bit. That's my knee-jerk reaction, and I'm sure people who are listening to this show probably have had the same I've had similar experiences sometimes where somehow people don't necessarily see your pictures and they're quickly asking you what camera you have or what lens you have. And so my first response to this person was something akin to like, I said there's too many lenses and cameras to even list here because I do shoot with a bunch of different cameras I go out with. And it's again that argument. It's like asking a painter or not, asking a writer what typewriter they use or asking what computer use or asking a cook what, pots they use to cook the meal.
Right.
Anyway, there was a little back and forth about this. It ended up a nice, at least I thought was a nice ending. There wasn't animosity in it, but I wanted to sort of play this out a little bit or sort of talk it out a little because again, my initial reaction is really, you really want to know about the cameras? What is that, what is that going to do? And actually what I did tell this person, I didn't tell him the specific cameras. I said, just for your information, I'm in the Fuji film system and I've got a zillion lenses. I don't know what I'm shooting with when I'm walking around. I don't remember all the time. I mean, I could look at the metadata, but I shoot between 3 or 5 cameras and stuff like that. And I did say that the color from the camera comes from the cameras and also a mix of stuff I do in Lightroom. So,
right.
But I was like, ultimately it doesn't matter,
No.
But this comes up again and again, and then sort of the same, I guess it's sort of having the same reaction again and again. And of course it's again, the knee jerk reaction is I don't want to tell people necessarily what camera I have, but then like, what is that about? Like,
right.
Why not tell the person what camera I have? But I sort of ranted on our unusual Discord group about like, I don't want to be polite anymore. I'm tired of being nice. And I don't mean that I'm going to be a schmuck.
We obviously have strong feelings about it. I mean, it's like, what difference does it make? And my point is, I think a lot of people, when they're maybe starting their journey in photography, they don't know, is it the equipment? Should I get a new camera? Like so it's just an easy question to ask in lieu of saying, hey, that's great work, which I think
whose
people
fault is
really
that,
should. Oh, I know, but I'm just saying, that's the approach, or like that's what they're not cognizant yet of the effort or what's required or however you want to put it. How do you think when you're shooting these photographs? And it's not about your gear, other than if you have dependencies on settings, you want to make sure that you're in the ballpark. Other than that, it doesn't matter what the equipment is. It really doesn't.
Right. But how, has it always been this way? I mean, I don't recall when I was shooting film or when I was looking at other people's film, because I remember I worked at a stock agency. And of course, that's sort of when I was beginning to do photography commercially and really getting into it. So maybe at some of the same point that people are at now with their cameras. And I'm not saying I'm a better person. I just don't recall, I think of one photographer whose work I admired a lot. And he was from Seattle, and I won't mention his name. I just don't want to say that. But I would look at his work, and I was just blown away by it. But I don't ever remember. And I talked to him a lot. I actually wrote letters back and forth to him, and I don't ever remember asking him like what cameras he had. And in fact, I don't even remember. I don't remember what cameras the guy used. I have no idea. And so with film cameras, I don't remember ever doing that. And then when you would see film too, like you would get medium format film, you would see it physically different, 35 millimeter slides.
Right.
You knew it was from a 35 millimeter camera. Medium format, if it was square, most of it probably came from a Hasselblad. It might have come from a Bronica or something like that. But, there was nothing on the film to indicate what camera it came from. There was no metadata per se.
Right.
So you could probably guess some cameras from the film. But again, it wasn't something that was on my mind. So I just wonder.
Well, I remember when I was younger and we were shooting weddings and Sunday school picnic and all that kind of stuff. Folks would come over and just see what you had. People
right, just like be like, oh, right,
yeah, what is that thing?
Because they probably had a collection of cameras at home, or
I had lens.
Dentist,
I don't think I had 2 bodies, but I had more than one lens, and someone would catch me changing a lens, and ooh, what do you got there?
Right, but that's looking at your equipment. They're not seeing the end result because they're looking at you in person, right? Yeah. So wondering where, and I don't think we can answer this, but maybe it could point to it a little bit. Like where did this evolve? How do you think this evolved? Because I don't remember this was filmed. Is this something that came with digital because digital is so quick in the turnaround, or it's so I don't know, distinctive colors? Actually, would people ask what kind of film you used? I wonder if maybe that was the equivalent in the film days.
I don't remember that, but sure.
Well, no, because I remember when Velvia was first when Velvia was first sort of coming through across our desks, and they're like, "What is this?" You know, you're looking at it, and the colors were so vibrant, or something. And of course, you could look at the flip at the back of the film. You could see that it was. Or if you open the film, you could actually see it was Fuji, and it would say Velvia on it, so it wasn't hard to guess. Maybe that was more of the equivalent, but it was again not as pervasive, I think, as it is now. When people are asking these questions about,
I think you're right.
And it's not, it's different than, I think, when someone looks at a photograph and they can see the processing in it, and they say, "Hey, that's a great picture. What did you process it with?" And I think that's a failure of processing. I tell students, if you over process your picture, you're gonna, and someone says that you've over processed your picture, and you sort of lost them at that because they're not seeing the subject matter. But
the overabundance of oversaturation, which was a big deal for a little
while.
Well,
that's still the case.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What do you think about this? I mean, I
don't think I'm not quite as taken aback or annoyed by the question as you. I try and take it like like a teaching moment to say, you know what, it doesn't matter what the gear is. And that you have your phone. If you want to take a picture like this, I could have easily have, depending on what it is, might have taken it with the phone if that was the only equipment I had with me at the time.
Do you tell people though? Like if someone says, "What did you shoot that picture with?" Is it you shot it with a phone, or I shot it with the camera? I mean, will you?
Eventually, if they press.
Yeah.
But no, I don't. I certainly don't tell them right off the bat.
And why?
And by the way, here it is. Like, just take it out of my bag.
But what is? I mean, you're saying you're using it as a teaching moment. Where did you come up with this as a plan of action? Like what's that coming from for you?
Well, this is just in the last 10 years or so. No, when there was this kind of discussion was going around in forums and on articles about photography, about when the expression, the best camera you have is the one you have with you, whatever, whatever that saying is. And that you can produce good work out of any equipment that you have, and that spending a lot of money doesn't make things better. That's basically it. I just say it doesn't really matter what I took this with.
Has it always been like that for you? Like it's just
just in the last 10 years, I
10
guess.
Years.
Yeah,
Okay.
so somewhere in there, or just since I started shooting street, and now I'm putting stuff out there on Instagram and Flickr, and I get the odd question.
I have it pop up in my class sometimes, and because when I go, like one of the classes I teach, two classes in person are street photography and digital photography, which I just did last week. And I come in there and I just bring my cameras as examples. So I brought my GFX, and then I brought my X Pro 3. Mm-hmm. It's just the cameras I picked up while I was walking out the door. And the people in the class, I think there were 2 Canon APS-C mirrorless cameras, which is like the M200, or I can't remember which numbers. They both actually had the same camera. And then another person had a Nikon D3200 or 3300. And there's a big difference between the cameras I've got, because big and professional, and these are appropriate, I think, for the students.
Yeah.
But one of the things I come across is telling them, because they all come there with kit lenses. And this is always tricky because just as you were saying, the best cameras when you have with you, doesn't matter the equipment you have. And I in my brain, I know that a good photographer could take a camera and a kit lens and probably make fantastic pictures.
Yeah.
And I'm trying. I tell them that I said, it's great to have a kit lens, but I said at a certain point you're going to find limitations. You're going to hit.
Right.
You're going to bounce into limitations, and you don't want to think about maybe buying another lens or you probably won't buy another body, but you buy other lenses and stuff like that. But I always find that that's a weird balance because I'm telling them on one hand, your cameras are fine. You don't need to change anything. Just work with what you have.
Right.
But at some point you're going to want to shift up. And that's when they ask me, well, what cameras would you recommend? What lenses would you recommend? I say,
but there's a difference there. In the first case where people are asking what lens you're using, that's sort of like an implied, they want to get a shortcut to say, how can I get better pictures right now? Right. The other is you're talking, photographer to photographer. Okay, so here's what you're going. Then now you're limited. Why are you limited? Oh, you like to shoot at night and your kit lens only goes to f3.5? Nice prime, a 2.8 or 1.7 or a 1.4. And go from there, or it's not zoomy enough. You're a sport photographer. You just decide you're trying
to take pictures of birds and you can't because
you want that 80 to 200
or
or 70 to 200.
So is that the thing? It's the shortcuttiness.
Absolutely.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Because who asks those questions? It's not people that are already, kind of further down in their journey. It's people who are like trying to grasp at something that's going to help them get off the ground a little more quickly. And
maybe that's some of the people who ask that question. Maybe not all of them, but maybe it's
maybe from someone who's been in the hobby for a while might ask, okay, there's something going on with this picture.
Mm-hmm.
What gear is this? This looks like razor thin depth of field. So you either had a really long lens or you're in some kind of medium format thing. I'm just want to know from a technical point of view, what actually is going on here. And I think that's a fair question.
Yeah. It's tricky because I don't want to, and I want to be helpful. Yeah. I'm not trying to hide secrets. I do have this, tendency to want to teach. And so I want people to ask questions and learn. And I don't want, I don't necessarily want to give something away so easily. I want them to use their brains a little bit.
You could say maybe that's the wrong question to ask. Asking what lens it is the wrong question to ask.
Well, how would you say that? Then if it's the wrong question, how would you finish that? That's the wrong question to ask.
Well, what is it that you see in this image that makes you want to ask me what lens it is?
Okay. All right.
And that's sort of like, you've got so much street in there. Like there's the people and they're little, and then you've got all the street on both sides. It's really, really like a really wide thing. Oh, okay. You saw that. So I shot it with a wide angle lens. It was like a 21 millimeter, and it's this lens that, and that would, that's a more interesting.
Yes. More interesting. And that could lead to a better discussion.
And that becomes a technical discussion and not a shortcut thing.
Yeah. Wow, all right. I'll try to keep that in mind. I think that's a nice way to think about it. I can probably still open up the conversation.
Yeah, just say, you don't like to answer a question with a question, but still, like, what makes you want to ask me?
Yeah. Okay. All right. I see. I knew.
How did I actually come up with something? Oh. Okay.
Well, I'll give that a shot. I think that's worth a try. And I don't really want to have knee-jerk reactions to this. And I think I'm getting better at it because I'm realizing what's the big deal. But again, like I said, the teacher part of me kicks in, and I want a discussion, which I think your suggestion opens it up to. And I want people to think and try to figure out stuff, because I like thinking and figuring out stuff. Even though people have answered my questions in the past, I still have to also think and figure stuff out. And it's nice to have that discovery, on my own. So, all right. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I just made it up.
Now the main course, more or less. So when when you came to visit me in October of last year,
yep,
you brought me a couple of books. One was book made by
the
you
rodeo
and
book.
Mark, the rodeo book.
Ryerson and I did.
Yeah. And actually, I have no idea.
Between Dust and Sky, the 100th Handhills Lake Stampede.
That's correct. And I don't know where I put it. I've got books all over the place now.
I visited the camera store today on the way home from work, and I saw that our copy in the store is still there, which is good and bad. It's good that people still get to see it. It's bad that it hasn't sold yet.
Maybe nobody wants to buy the last copy. Maybe you need to put a second copy in there. You said you still have a few left.
Yeah, we got a few.
But then you also gave me this book from your neck of the woods for a photographer. It's called Everett Baker's Saskatchewan. Did I pronounce that correctly, I hope?
Yeah, Saskatchewan.
Yeah. Okay.
There you go. Perfect.
Saskatchewan. Portraits of an Era. Selected by Bill Wazer. And you said, I can't remember what you said to me. Like you said, this is from your neck of the woods, or like you said.
Well, it's from my home province.
It's from your home province, but you wanted me to see it and have it.
Yeah, it was sort of like, I'm coming, I'm bringing my culture with me.
You didn't sign it.
I didn't sign it. Oh, I didn't dedicate it.
You could have said, like, to your friend,
it'll just lessen the volume of it, or lessen the value of it, when you want to, you want to be a book collector, you don't want them too marked up.
All right. So we thought it would be a good idea to talk about. I've never heard of this photographer before. You've had, obviously.
But he's a recent discovery in terms of Saskatchewan culture. He was discovered, I think, in '97.
Really? That recently?
Yeah, he passed away. Well, we should just tell his story.
Yeah, let's tell the story. Well, he's a little bit of your story, so. I did read the book, but I think I'll just defer to you to give us the sort of the background on him first.
Sure. So he's an American dude. He was born in the late 1800s, I think 1893 in Minnesota, and actually in the middle of the First World War, he moved to a really remote town in Saskatchewan called Aneroid, which is a funny name for a town. And he started a farm there in 1916. And he kept the farm going until 1924, when he started working for, in those days in Saskatchewan, because it's so sparsely populated, the whole thing about cooperatives was very big, and it still is. In fact, the Federated Cooperatives of, it's Federated Cooperative, they're like, they have retail stores and grocery stores and gas stations, all that kind of stuff, and it all came from this from these cooperatives that started in the 20s and 30s, in part to buffer their economy from the Depression and so on. So anyway,
did it help? Do you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
it did help.
Yeah, it did. Okay. Yeah, because it provided jobs. It gave these smaller communities access to markets they wouldn't otherwise have. I mean, they had railways and stuff, and if all these communities and cooperatives could get together, they had buying power in order to bring lumber and all those sorts of things, so they could build homes and stuff. So the cooperatives were good at bringing that stuff in. So anyway, so he was sort of swept up in that and part of that. So he left the farm. He ran the store in Aneroid, and he did that till about 31, and the Depression hit. And so he ended up starting for another cooperative organization called the Saskatchewan Wheat Pool. And if you're from Saskatchewan, you know about the Wheat Pool, and it was the kind of the marketing sales arm of grain farmers in Saskatchewan. And so they were a huge organization in terms of the Canadian economy, to getting wheat and other grains to market. So he was with them, and one thing that with the Wheat Pool, because they were kind of ubiquitous throughout the province, was he got to travel a lot. And so with his traveling, he was able to see new co-op stores set up. So he would take pictures of those. There'd be some kind of seminar going on. He'd take pictures of those and that sort of thing. And so that carried on right through until the 60s. And he passed away in 1983. And he left behind a bunch of slides. And there's something very interesting about the way he worked, in that in the late 30s, I think in 1939, he bought a Leica, who in Saskatchewan had a Leica.
Can I tell that a little bit?
Well, no, you tell that story.
Well, just a little bit, but he got, there were some refugees that had come over from Sudetenland, which had been invaded by Germany, or annexed. And he bought a Leica from one of the refugees. He paid him, what was it? Something like
$100 is
about $100. Was it $100 Canadian or $100 American?
Would have been Canadian. Yeah.
Canadian, but it seemed like a lot of money for the camera, and so it seems like he was offering the guy. The refugees needed money. They were penniless, and so I think he ended up offering them more money than what the camera was worth in order to also help them out. But he bought. I don't know what kind of Leica it was. I don't know what I'm going to get into the
39. What it would have been, like a 3C or something. It would have been pretty old. Yeah.
But for him to have being able to help out these people a bit by buying the camera, I thought it was kind of cool. Kind of cool little story. And then the fact that I didn't realize that there was a lot of Sudeten refugees who had come over and settled in Canada. So as I read the book,
very large Ukrainian component, very large.
Really, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, a very. I think it's the largest concentration of Ukrainians of Ukrainian diaspora outside Ukraine.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. Thousands and thousands of Ukrainians came and started farms. But another thing about Baker too was not only did he have a Leica, but what film did he use? He used
Kodachrome. Yes.
Which is, if you know anything about the Kodachrome, Paul Simon sings about it.
Yeah, well, we can't say the.
No, we can't. We'll be sued. We just say Paul Simon has a song about
Paul Simon has a song about Kodachrome.
And
we could talk about Kodachrome because Kodak's not around anymore. Kodachrome's not around anymore. The book you gave me is incredibly well printed, and it's done in a way like slides. I just noticed that all the pictures the corners are curved, as if you were looking at a slide mount. So when I'm looking at like a single picture on a page, and it looks like a 35 millimeter slide.
Yeah. I can hear the fan running and the projector advancing. Yeah.
Well, talk about what he photographed. Talk about, because that's, I think, part of the interesting story about him, because he's going around many different places with his Leica. He's taking pictures, not, from what I could tell, not as any kind of art project, but as sort of a record, right?
Yeah, he was a record. He is he's a couple of notches above vernacular photography, although he took pictures of the bathing beauties outside by the lake resort. He would take pictures of, I think he's got some pictures of Hutterite families from their communes. He's got photographs of gatherings of parades, for instance. There could be Dominion Day parades, which is July 1st, what we call Canada Day now. There'd be events for the co-op where there would be a new store, a new gas station would be set up in the early 60s. My hometown is in there, Outlook, Saskatchewan.
Oh,
they're
really?
They're showing the gas station, and the lumber yard building set up in 1961. So there's that. Farm families, gatherings for picnics, auctions. If there's a livestock auction, he's very often there, and those auctions would take place out of doors in those days. And
he traveled a lot,
everything.
Right?
He did travel a lot. I'd be interested to know what his travelogue is.
Yeah, I would like to know that too. He'd also wouldn't he bring a projector with him and show slides when he would travel?
Did he? I don't know. Yeah,
I think it was in the story. It was like he would show pictures of either other farms or what other people were doing to other groups of people, and there were this, gatherings, these slideshows and things. I was looking through the pictures, and I'm a big fan of also photographers during the time of the Depression in the United States, the FSA photographers.
FSA, yeah.
And it occurred to me as I was looking through his work that, first of all, he wasn't doing that, although there's a similarity in the subject matter because he is doing farms and the people. Certainly the time periods, there's some crossover a little bit.
10 years later or so, like the ones,
yeah.
the pictures from the 40s.
But there's almost like an opposite. There's like an opposite FSA going on here because opposite of the Depression.
Yeah.
You know, you look at the pictures from that time period, the vast majority are from, you know, the United States photographers are in black and white. They're during the Depression. People, it's terrible time and people are unhappy and it's it literally the Depression in photography. And I look at his pictures and even though it's after, it's still during World War II, some of the stuff. I mean, it's, you know, during Reconstruction afterwards and everything, but there's still a feeling of like, I want to say anti-depression is not the right word, but people
the
smiling.
40s, yeah, people are smiling. So there's some things happening. The cooperative movement was going very well. The weather was good. They were getting rainfall. Like there's very few images in there where it's not green.
Right.
Which, you know, I grew up in the 70s and, you know, it's very nearly drought almost all the time there.
Yeah.
And, you know, there it just seemed like everything was very green. And part of that is, I guess, his choice and when he shot and, you know, the times of year and that sort of thing. But it just seems very lush to me as a Saskatchewanian. That's you know, and that's, I find that interesting too. But I look at those pictures and I can feel the warm wind blow through and the women's hair and you know, sitting out in the sun and the farmer with his, you know, his ruddy complexion, not because he's Irish, but because he spent way too much time outside.
You know, thinking again about the Depression era photographers who are going around, they're photographing people in their environment, and it doesn't look like the people are putting on any kind of face. They're just presenting themselves as they are. This book has the same feeling. The people do seem like they're feeling different. There's a naturalness. You know, people are smiling in front of the cameras, but I get the sense from the vast majority of pictures I'm seeing in this that it's genuine. It's not people putting on a smiling face or a happy face for the camera. There's just something behind it that feels more natural and happy. Is that, you know, why we talk about, you know, Canadians are like really nice people?
Well, there's a thing I would say, pardon me, is that, you know, because he didn't take that many pictures. Well, he did take quite a few pictures of folks out, you know, sitting on their front steps on their farmhouse, of the gatherings of people who have come to town to see the parade and they're there to be seen. And so if they weren't, they wouldn't be in the pictures. They'd be at home on the farm moping. Sorry, that's a little joke. They'd be like, I don't feel like going into town to do that. You know, it's like, it was a big deal to go into town. Even in the 70s, the nearest city to us was Saskatoon, and it's an hour's drive.
Oh, really? Wow.
And it was a big deal, you know?
Yeah.
You know, the wives would be going because they would have 9 p.m. shopping on Thursday evenings, right? And so we're going to get a couple of girls together and we're going to go late night shopping in the city. We always call it the city. And in fact, my wife and I, we both grew up in the same town. It's sort of like, you know, oh, did your mother go into the city today? Even though we live in a city that's, you know, 8 times bigger, 5 times bigger. It's sort of like, well, did they go to the city tonight? You know? So there's a little culture of place. And it's funny that you talk about Baker taking his projector with him and showing. People didn't travel that much. I mean, if you could see like people who live out in the middle of who live up north in what's basically parkland, so trees and meadows and lakes and all that kind of stuff, and they'd see pictures from Shaunavon or Fort Qu'Appelle or someplace where it's almost desert. It's very short grass, prairie, and kind of the undulations and the coulees and the rivers and creeks and stuff that's in the south of the province where, you know, you'd sit and, you know, it's the same province, but the geography is so much different. And you'd look at that, you know, and if you weren't from there, you know, where he's showing those pictures, like, wow, it's really hot summers. And it's really, you know, there were these whole kind of, and I think that's great. And I'm really glad to hear that because he's kind of pulling the people of the province together by doing that, and he's seeing things in the different places that he goes.
But this wasn't his job. He wasn't a photographer. He just
No.
brought a camera with him.
Yep. And he was just an enthusiast. He was an enthusiast.
Yeah.
In the story is he left behind 15,000 slides. Mm-hmm. And then it went to, I think that the images went in binders after he passed away. They went to a university in Ontario somewhere. So way further east, like out of the prairies completely. And somebody, I don't know, it was from the University of Saskatchewan, heard about these and brought them back to the province. The person who was the curator of the museum said, look, if you can find a use for them, please take them. And they did, and I guess they got some teachers together, and then they got like a dozen teachers together, and after, 9 months, they had 10,000 slides scanned. And they put most of them into Smug, actually. And we can put
we'll put the links in the show notes, but you can see a good chunk of his pictures. I don't think all 10,000 are there, but a lot of them are. There's a lot of actually high-res scans, which surprised me. A lot of low-res scans. But they just scan them. There's no work on them whatsoever. So if you want to go see these pictures, we'll have the links.
Well, it's not unlike sitting and watching a slideshow.
No, it's not. But what is to you, what is special about his work? Like what is it that resonates with you other than you being, from the area that he's photographing a lot? Like you gave me this book.
Yeah.
What was it like,
Well, it's to say, if you had any idea what it's like to live there, the people don't look any different there today as they do there. The glasses are fancier and the clothes are different. But the way people look and the kind of awkward smile that they make for the camera, that is all still there. And like I say about the warm wind blowing through your hair, when I had hair, in the summertime, that's in that book. That just really captures a sense of place. And I like, as I get older, the sense of place. I mean, I was walking around downtown Calgary today and I could see my own ghost where I took a picture of, I took a picture called Manly Distance. I stood right over there and it's just that railing. And, like the play, for some reason, place has become a real deal. And that book, I think, transmits what it's like to be in Saskatchewan, just with a bit of time travel thrown in, which is another one of my deals. And so I think it transmitted that. And I wanted to bring you something that represented me in some way.
It's something special also, if I may interject here, to see pictures from this period of time. First of all, like a giant concentration of them. Again, I'm actually looking at the Smug pages. A giant concentration of pictures from this kind of relatively the same area, and from that time period in color. Like we're often seeing pictures from the 40s and 50s, more often in black and white, because color wasn't really taken so seriously. And also, this guy, I mean, Kodachrome must have been expensive. Kodachrome is a very hard film to process.
Yeah, the nearest lab would have been Vancouver, so he would have had to send his film to Vancouver or Toronto probably. And
it would probably have taken a long time for it to process, long time for him to get it back. But as a historic record of any area, whether it's in this case Canada or any place else, to see this much color about I would say one subject matter, but when you look through it, it's farms and people and what they're doing. It's kind of incredible, and there's all these little gems in there. I mean, there's a lot of pictures in there. I look at
that seem vernacular. Yeah, they're just whatever.
And they're like great. It's great to see the side of the barn and this little canal or something like that. But every now and then, like actually, there were some pictures in the book. I put you can see. Look, I put all these little sticky notes on pages I like to talk about. Of course, is again, we're doing audio here. There's just one picture of a woman holding her child in the middle of a wheat field. Mrs. Donald McLeod, Clayton, 1956. The book actually goes through all the different eras. It sort of mixes up the 50s and the 40s and There's some 60s stuff in here, I think. There's something really nice about the picture. It's a very quintessential Kodachrome color, golden hour picture. Her skin is very warm toned. She's got, again, the genuine smile on her face in a wheat field. It's almost like a built-in vignette going on, but I don't know what that's about, where that's from. Is it the camera or something like that? And there's a lot, again, there's like these little gems. This one I love. This older woman with next to her plum tree or plum, whatever it is.
Yeah, which would have been a rare crop. Like no one grows plums,
right? And she looks so proud of it. You know, she's like, and she's not only just proud, but like, you know, like happy to show it off. And it's just there's something about it. Anyway,
it's like. Okay, Everett, go ahead. You know, take the picture.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this other one he's got of a heavy rain and a rainbow. The printing is not so great on the picture, but you can kind of see this hint of a rainbow. It's very kind of out of place. This sort of dark picture. Yes, but anyway, there's here's one of the customers and staff. These people outside of a store, and they're all wearing like what look like silly Indian headdresses.
Oh, yeah.
Like made of cardboard or something like that. Or, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I noticed a couple things. First of all, he shoots mostly horizontal.
Yeah.
The vast majority of pictures are horizontal, which I was thinking I'm very curious about that. Every now and then there'll be a shot in vertical of like people in bathing suits or something.
Well, I would just say metaphysically, that place is all about horizon and sky, right?
Yeah, I was thinking.
Unbelievable sky there. Yeah.
I also wonder if it's, not an amateur thing to do, but it's like, he seems to be taking pictures, like he's standing someplace and he's taking a picture.
Yeah.
He's not getting a different angle. He's not going down low. He's using the same lens, right? Or at least it seems like the same lens. Another curious thing is that when he photographs groups, this is me sort of pixel peeping, in a way. But he photographs groups. He shoots them on an angle
to get them all in.
To get them all in. I didn't even, I was thinking about that. I was like, why are they all on an angle? There's some group pictures that are straight on, but every time there's a group, more often than not,
if it's a big group, he'll have.
There's a big group. They're shot at an angle, and everybody's sort of looking over their shoulder at him, and stuff like that. So I thought that was kind of cool. It's the more I look at it, the more the imagery draws me in, and of course, I'm always excited about pictures from the past. This time period is great. To see it in color makes it a little bit easier to relate to it, because I think that's the way color is. And it's not the kind of picture, like if you had not given me this book, I would have never known about this or cared.
No. Actually, people in Saskatchewan wouldn't have either. Like,
oh, really?
That's why this is of such value. It's sort of like, and when you see pictures from your hometown, or now I'm looking at a picture of a brick building, the Broderick Co-op store. Well, that's 6 miles from where I grew up. I know where that building is now, like there's this time travel component to it. And there's pictures of, group pictures taken from in my hometown. And so I want my mother-in-law to look at these pictures and like, who are these? I mean, did I go to school with their grandkids? Like,
there's probably a good chance they might know somebody. Given.
Oh, there's no doubt. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's our parents' generation that he covered in the 60s.
Right. That's true. Yeah. Again, it like I said, it's got that, it's, because of the farm and the kind of area and time that he photographed, it's got the feel of the Depression era photographs, and it's just totally the opposite. It's not black and white, it's color. It's not sad and depressed people. Yeah. It's people who seem to be genuinely content with their situations.
There was a lot of pride in the province right up until pretty much the late 70s. That's when things started to, external forces, globalization, all that kind of stuff, commodity prices came down, and it wasn't as prosperous as it seemed to be. But so it's capturing all of that post-war optimism in Canada that I think is that you don't see documented pretty much anywhere else, in the prairies especially.
Do you know if anybody's picked up his reign? Like, is like continuing this, or is this just like a one-time thing that you think this happened?
How do you mean continuing his reign?
Like, is anybody else doing this kind of work now? Like,
it's a good question. I don't know.
I was just, I didn't know you might.
I mean, there are lots of photographers in Saskatchewan, but the ones that I see are all doing sort of the fine arty kind of things that you would expect to see, and wildlife and Northern Lights pictures and all that kind of stuff that is I think kind of common. But this kind of semi-vernacular, I mean, no one's really doing what he did now. I don't see, there are no traveling salesmen anymore. Or people that, well, maybe there are, but not in Saskatchewan that I know of, where you would have the time to be able to take some pictures and bring the families out of their farmhouse, and it's not done anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'm really very happy that you gave me this book, and I'm very happy to have now discovered him. And like I said, I don't know if I spent a whole bunch of time on the Smug sites, going through the pictures and popping them open, because there's a lot of them that are not in the book. Just so I can see the details. There's this shot of an old bus. God, yes, they're great. So if you like this kind of, the pictures are all dusty, so you can see all the dust on them. Nobody's cleaned it off. So, and I'm surprised they put all that stuff on Smug. So,
well, it was they wanted to get it out there, and I think they were wise to do that. I mean, so many. I mean, we talk about Ukrainian diaspora. There's Saskatchewan diaspora too. I think fully a third of Calgary is ex-Saskatchewan people.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, there's a pub a few miles away. It's called the Saskatchewan Bar, and they used to have a notebook or a logbook there where you would write down your name and where you came from. And you go through it, and inevitably there would be someone you knew that went through town. Why didn't they call me?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of a lucky thing. I mean, it's so many of us live in places where like if I live in New York, I mean, I could never see the same person twice over my entire lifetime. And to be someplace where you can come across people that is quite nice, and to see that also then recorded. I feel that in his pictures. Like, it does seem like he was welcomed where he went. He was working for this co-op agency.
Yeah.
And then taking the time, like, to do this. Like, this wasn't part of his job.
Yeah.
Or
no.
He sort of made it as part of his job.
He did.
Right?
He did. Well, there's pictures of the co-op board meetings and stuff like that. And it's just.
But I don't think he was like. I don't think they hired him and said, "You're going to be a photographer." He just. He just decided to do this. Yeah. So, well, thanks for sharing him with me and the rest of us. I mean, it's kind of a little treasure here, I think.
I would agree.
Yeah.
And I think his book is still available.
Is it? Is it available in places where?
Yeah, I think you can get it. In Canada, we have Chapters Indigo, which is sort of like a Barnes & Noble kind of thing. It was published in 2007, if I'm not mistaken. Somewhere in there.
Taking a look here.
It may be available.
Multiple printings. 2007. Yeah, first published in the United States. Yeah.
So I didn't even look. It might be on Amazon. It might be on Amazon.com too.
Yeah, there's been a few printings too. So it seems like it's a popular book. Very cool. And in the end of the book, there's a little bit about the appendix, the Leica camera and Kodachrome film. So they talk about the film and camera at the time he was shooting, and the size of the camera, whatever camera he's got. It doesn't say what model it is. So it's very interesting. I really like this.
Cool.
Thank you for this book, and I'm glad we got a chance to share it. And anyway, I was like, I've got both this book and Jeffrey's Manhattan Astoria book in my hands, and I'm just wondering, like, there's some, I'm saying connection to them, but I'm looking at them both and thinking, about how two people are seeing the areas that they live in in such different ways, and yet are still recording it.
Well, one's your neighborhood and one's mine, so that's even,
not only that, but
that adds it special too.
Yeah, but there's also that sense of time and place, and this is what this area looked like at this time that these photographers walked around and photographed. So it makes me kind of happy to be doing like the things that I'm doing, like the recording of the neighborhood and whatnot. And I encourage people to do that when they can, because everybody comes like, oh, I need to go someplace. You need to travel, long distances and get, in order to get good photography. And I was like, no, most photographers, I think you can do everything in your own area, within your own province.
I mean, when I started up with Mark in whatever it was, 2014, 2015, there are photographs we take of buildings that have been knocked down, the views that are no longer possible that we captured. So it doesn't take long before things are different and novel.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to take pictures of these boring old cars and stuff. Well, maybe not now, but come check again in 20 or 30 years and you'll be amazed.
Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Well, I'm glad we got a chance to talk about him on the show. And thank you for the book.
You're welcome.
Next time you give me a book, sign it.
Okay.
I don't care.
Next time I visit, I'll sign it. Okay. Antonio made me write this. All the best. Lord. Those are great.
In trouble with me. All right. Cool. Well, we got another one in the can. Wonderful.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Thank you. So, as we wrap up, where are people going to look for you in the world?
You can find me on Instagram at WordRosinFineArt, Twitter at WRosinPhoto. I'm also WRosinPhoto on Vero. I have a website called rosin.ca. There's not much there right now. At some point I'll catch up on that. And I have this little business called Ornus Photo where I sell lenses for Sony E and Fuji X mounts and lens adapters.
Our unofficial
sponsor. Oh, I'm on Facebook too.
You're on Facebook too, right? Bookface, yeah. All right, cool. And you can find me on Twitter at @amrosario. Although I'm spending less and less time on Twitter, I've started to move a little bit towards Mastodon. So you can find me on Mastodon also at @amrosario. I'm starting to put stuff up there. I'm on Vero at @amrosario. I'm on Flickr at @amrosario. I got an Opie here screaming at me at @amrosario.
My cat Opie is it?
My cat Opie, yeah. Facebook is rosario.photo, and what else? Yeah, I haven't put up any stuff on our Instagram site, so I'm not mentioning that. But maybe we'll move over to Mastodon too, or something like that. Anyway, cool. Did I miss anything? I didn't.
No, I think we're good.
No, and we I'll be seeing you in a couple of weeks, I hope.
You bet.
All right. Well, thanks for joining me tonight.
All right. Have a good one.
Right. Good night, everybody. Bye. Yeah, Frosty the Snowman.
Well, I know those, the Rankin Bass stuff. Those old...
They're like old, animations. Okay. Like old animations, Mr. Heat.
No, I don't know that one.
You don't know this one?
No, I don't know that one.
With the guy with the crazy hair. Oh, this is...
I'm thinking of Yukon Cornelius.
The Christmas Without a Santa Claus, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. They were like these 50s animations, stop-motion animations.
Well, I know most of the Rankin Bass ones. I'm thinking of Frosty. No, Frosty the Snowman was actually drawn.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Yeah. That's Yukon Cornelius.
You remember? But there was one, the Christmas Without a Santa Claus.
I don't know that one. That one.
There was the Heat Miser, and there was the Cold Miser, and one was red with little hair.
No.
Nope. Okay.
I don't think that one made it across the border.
Yeah.